Hello and welcome to ESPN Cricinfo Matchday T20. We are focusing on our big double header in the IPL 2019. Sunrisers Hyderabad and Kolkata Knight Riders at the Eden Gardens in just a little bit from now. Captains already making their way onto the field, and we have big news in that moment itself because it's not Kane Williamson walking, it's Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. Don't know how often he's actually captained a team, but this will be fun in any event. We'll scratch Williamson off in a minute and put Bhuvaneshwar Kumar next to Dinesh Karthik. But that's the game that we're focusing on. Ajit Agarkar and Brad Hodge with me in studio, and headlining this game is the return of David Warner. Hodgie?
Well, it's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been such a tremendous player in T20 cricket and tremendous for the SRH team. So, it's been a long year, I'm sure, for Davey, and he'll be itching to get out there. He's a good player and he just wants to play cricket.
We also want to see a slightly more competitive game than what we saw yesterday.
I'd be shocked if it's as bad as the one last night. I think the pitch dictated a lot of it, although RCB didn't particularly bat well. Might have made a bit more competitive that game, but two really good teams, two really good 11s. In spite of Williamson not being there, still a very, very formidable team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, that we say things about CSK and we know they're champions, but there are similar questions about their squad this year than last year. RCB, you know that they might click, they might not click. These two teams is a lot more that these look good.
Two sides, top 3 or 4 sides, don't they? You know that KKR are always competitive. They're always up there at the back end. And for me, SRH have just got it's a fantastic side, and they've got 3 new inclusions as well with that trade from Shikhar Dhawan, which will only aid what is already a pretty good squad.
All right, now let's start with the discussion on David Warner. It is his return, and we're going to take that as our first matchday match point. David Warner returning for Sunrisers Hyderabad. How does that impact not just Hyderabad and their season coming up, but also David Warner personally with a big few months of cricket even after the World Cup? Let's talk about the relationship between a player like Warner and what a franchise like Hyderabad would mean for him to have his return to high-profile cricket. I know he's played some cricket in Bangladesh, but what would this setup mean for him if he had to sort of find this as the route to come back to high-level cricket?
Look, I think he'll be fine. I think he's probably been looking forward to this moment for a good year, and he knows that this would have been the return of his competitive game. And it's on a stage which he loves as well. So, I mean, he's shone brightly in the IPL for many, many years. So this will be a good opportunity for him to go out there and showcase, his skills and talent.
I mean, those numbers tell you the story, really. And how successful he's been. It's one of those things. I mean, he'd be very hungry. I mean, I don't think any player wants to sit out a year out of cricket when he's at his peak. So it can only be a positive for Hyderabad. I'm not quite sure whether it'll be as easy for him just coming back and facing a really good attack. But we know what he can do once he gets going.
Yeah, just an idea of some numbers in recent times, and these are essentially David Warner's numbers since April 2018. He's played 16 innings in T20 cricket, an average of 34, strike rate of 120. So he will find his feet, but the challenge, of course, is that he's at the Eden Gardens against a slightly more challenging bowling attack. Would he relish the scale of his comeback, or would you have liked it to almost be, inconspicuous to some degree?
Look, I don't think he was going to ever hide away from the facts that, it was going to attract some attention. But, look, I had him over in the CPL, and he played a reserved game, I must say, but he was quite comfortable with where he was at. Those numbers in the last 12 months don't reflect what a great player he is. And, his preparations, his mindset would have been... well and truly flushed, I reckon, by the time he got to the IPL. So I think he'd be in a great mindset to actually achieve some greatness.
Yeah, let's throw up his very attractive flashcard that we've made for a number of players for the duration of this IPL 2019. That's the Warner flashcard. Watch that go all the way over mid-on boundary as you expect. Balls per boundary is under 5. That's incredible. You look at the strike rates, power play, mid-overs and the death does not slow down. But for this one-year ban and everything that's gone down, it probably still is the premier T20 batsman. He's right up there with an AB de Villiers. I don't know who else you can put in the same league as those two.
Yeah, I mean, AB, Warner, Virat, those guys that have crossed off sort of all 3 forms of the game and continue to fire at T20 is outstanding. But you look at those numbers, Ajit, and you just think, as a fast bowler...
There is no weakness in there.
No.
Doesn't matter what stage of the innings he bats or against pace or spin. And that's one of the challenges. I mean, Brad might be able to tell you better that overseas guys usually find coming here to take on the spinners, then suddenly changes the game. You saw a couple of the batters. Darcy Short comes to mind last year. Came with a big reputation, couldn't quite get to grips with the conditions in India. So Warner passes all those.
No, I like what you say, because even if you say Chris Gayle, there are off spinners that might want to open the bowling against him. Say AB de Villiers, some left arm spinners wouldn't mind having a crack. David Warner, there's no such apparent weakness, is there? You can't really say this is the bowler I'm going to bowl to David Warner to try and get him.
No, and
quickly.
people have tried that actually. I mean, they've tried many times where a right arm spinner, orthodox spinner will open the bowling to David Warner, but he's just overcome every challenge that I've seen. He's a dominant player. He's developed switch hits as well to combat those things, and people have just got no answers.
Yeah, the other aspect of Warner that could come in today is leadership, because there's no Kane Williamson, and Sunrisers have announced that Williamson will continue to lead the side. They've also announced Bhuvneshwar Kumar as vice captain, so it's not like they wanted to put the added pressure of any form of leadership role officially on Warner. But you'd expect almost unofficially or naturally that there would be some input from Warner, especially in a day like this when you've got a captain who's not quite as experienced in leading.
I think he would have actually liked the challenge. I think he would have liked to be given the captaincy, I reckon, because that's just the type of beast that he is. He likes to lead from the front, and he's done it before for this team and done it with success.
Yeah, I don't think it's such a bad thing though, not giving him, just taking him out of the spotlight a little bit and let him worry about his batting and his cricket in general, or just try and get back to the team. Hopefully Bhuvneshwar Kumar doesn't have to lead the team for too long, and Williamson's back because he did a exceptional job last year with them.
Yeah, he's also, if he had to pick which opposition he'd want to play against, he'd pick KKR. He's got the most runs against them in the IPL. The fact that they move around from different teams is another thing, but for Warner against one team, 677 runs against Kolkata at an average of nearly 40 and a strike rate of 144. He's got 250s and 200s to add to that. So it's happy hunting, and Kolkata have been known to be a pretty good bowling attack over the years. So that only goes to show how good David Warner really is. They've got their work cut out, and it is going to be David Warner in the spotlight, not just from the IPL point of view, but there'll be Australian media and public and selectors and people interested in Australian cricket all following this. What about the toss and the update after what's happened at the Eden Gardens in the playing 11s? We have confirmation that Bhuvneshwar Kumar is indeed captain, and that KKR have won the toss. They will have a bowl first. So let's get into that. Eden Gardens bowling first. This new Eden Gardens, which you would have liked bowling on more than the one you got when you were playing.
Yeah, but afternoon games is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Can start a bit slow sometimes and just get better as the evening goes on. But like you said, we'll have to wait and see, because it is a changed pitch, and it might still play well. And KKR are quite good at chasing. I mean, they know the target. They've got the necessary resources. Guys like Lynn and Narayan, Dinesh Karthik himself, Andre Russell, those guys are Uttappa.
Yeah.
They've got some real big power hitters who can then chase down any score on a good pitch.
Might be the trend for the early few games of the IPL. Just win the toss, bowl, have a look at how each pitch is playing.
Yeah, it seems to be a standard practice from captains, doesn't it? They seem to... I think the one thing is that every team has deep batting, so they're comfortable with chasing big numbers. And if you're happy to restrict the side to 160, 170, you're quite comfortable in those numbers. So that might be the way.
It's a tough ground to defend on as well.
Yeah.
Very, very quick outfield. Someone gets going, and if it's a good pitch, it's one of those grounds where you can chase down anything.
Yeah, you feel as a batter that when you're in the middle, you always feel that you can hit a six at any time.
Yeah, it's again, maybe just seeing how things go, but they're up against an attack which includes Rashid Khan, which can who in his 4 overs can change the game on his head. So they'll be wanting to restrict Sunrisers to a reasonable total.
Yeah, if you have to talk a bit about the teams, the one confirmation we can give you is that Johnny Bairstow has come in for Kane Williamson. They had the option of Williamson's international T20 opening partner in Martin Guptill, perhaps, if he wanted to have a crack at the top as replacement. They've gone for the Englishman, and that means an IPL debut for Johnny Bairstow too, who's found himself not in favour of IPL selection in previous seasons. What does Bairstow bring as an option? You had Guptill, who's played a bit of IPL before, albeit not successfully, but Bairstow at the top, more than suitable and capable replacement?
Yeah, more than suitable. Yeah. I think he's a tremendous player, actually. Good striker, pretty good adaptive. He plays sort of 360. He's good with the laps, good with the sweeps, but he's an aggressive player. I'm surprised a little bit that they didn't go for the safer option of Martin Guptill, who's done it all before and is a pretty good player. But That's a good move, actually.
We'll have to wait and see what the 11 is. Maybe he's keeping wickets as well, and Saha,
Good
instead
chance.
of Saha, they
Good
get
chance he is,
another
yes.
bowler or an all-rounder, or someone like a Huda or Abhishek Sharma comes in, which gives them a bit more teeth down the order as well. So that's an added bonus with someone who bats at the top and can keep wickets. It's almost including an all-rounder.
I'm wondering if you have to give an Englishman, an overseas player, an ideal 11 to play against, whether he'd want to have Chawla, Kuldeep Yadav and Sunil Narayan in Kolkata on that too. That's a challenge, bit of a challenge. Top quality spin against him.
Not just Kolkata. I think it'll be a challenge anywhere. But it's like we said before, it's one of those grounds where you can score very quickly. And if it's a good pitch, it wouldn't really matter. I mean, Kuldeep's probably a little bit different to the other guys. But if it's a good pitch, there's always runs on offer.
Let's look at those 11s then and have a little more detail. It takes a little time in these first few games for us to get it together. Even the captains don't know their 11s when they come to the toss, so they struggle to confirm all of them. But there is confirmation that Johnny Bairstow is playing for the Sunrisers Hyderabad, and we'd imagine will open with David Warner and indeed take the gloves. So there's no room for Ridhiman Saha, and that means there is room for both Yusuf Pathan and Deepak Huda. Manish Pandey 3, Vijay Shankar at 4. Is that the presumed batting order? Shakib Al Hassan, he's been so good for them in the middle. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar to captain, and Sandeep Sharma and Siddharth Kaul are the Indian seamers that have been picked. So there's no room for Khalil Ahmed, and Rashid Khan is of course a straight pick into that team. Let's talk a bit about the batting order. They'll be batting first, Ajit. Vijay Shankar, would he have a slight word and say, you know what, keep me batting at 3 or 4? We've got some World Cup plans in mind.
Yeah, I think they'll have to as well. I don't think they can bat him lower than that. He probably needs a couple more balls than the rest of the guys, maybe a Shakib or a Yusuf Pathan or a Huda to get his eye in. And he seems quite adept, just plays normal cricket. I think those other guys, if the situation demands, might come ahead of him. It'll be a big season for, till Williamson. We don't quite know how Bairstow is going to go, and Warner's just come back. So a big game for likes of Pandey and Shankar and Shakib, because they'll have to play well to get them to a competitive total. I mean, it looks great on paper. Williamson's a big miss with the kind of form that he's shown. Shikhar Dhawan's not there. So those two guys are, two experienced misses who've been really good in the IPL.
I do really like the sort of contrast of that batting lineup. If you just throw it up again, the playing 11, you've got Bairstow and Warner, who can really take you to the game. Then there's Manish Pandey, who's been slightly, there have been questions whether he slows things down, but you've got consolidation if you need it in Manish Pandey, Vijay Shankar and Shakib. Then again you go crazy with Yusuf Pathan and Deepak Huda. So this team seems to have some serious muscle in spite of losing such a big player like Williamson.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, Johnny Bairstow will try and play that role that Williamson was posting, but I don't think he'll be able to replace that sort of class that he's possessed lately. But yeah, what it's done with Vijay Shankar, they're playing in the middle, is it's probably allowed them to play Yusuf Pathan and also Deepak Huda in the death, because they got some serious power. Whether they're at their best or not recently, we'll just have to find out. But I think for this side, it's all about how you get off to a good start with Warner, who hasn't played for a while, and Johnny Bairstow playing his first game, coming up against the likes of Nareen, Russell. It's a pretty formidable task.
Exactly what he likes, some spin bowling.
Yusuf Pathan is very familiar to this ground. He's played some fine innings for KKR in the past, and let's make no mistake that Rashid Khan too considers himself a more than handy batsman. You're going to see him bat 11 as we put him out in that list, and he did score a match-winning knock against KKR in the playoffs last year. So Rashid Khan's continuing to just brim with confidence. What about KKR's 11? Slightly more settled and predictable 11. Chris Lynn and Sunil Narayan, we assume, will resume this partnership at the top. Uthappa, Shubman Gill, Nitesh Rana. That would be an interesting choice as to who goes 3, 4, 5. Dinesh Karthik at 6. Andre Russell at 7. Piyush Chawla and Kuldeep Yadav. And they've gone for Lockie Ferguson ahead of Harry Gurney. There was a slight chance they might have gone for the Englishman, but they've gone for the Kiwi. Prasidh Krishna, who impressed last season, is the only Indian seam bowling option. Thoughts on that one, Ajit? Lockie Ferguson ahead of Harry Gurney?
Yeah, I think bit of pace. Played last year, so sometimes when you know what you can get from somebody, you kind of want to trust that and settle. I mean, Haji was talking about Gurney, who he's seen very closely and seems to have some different variations. We'll probably see him later on in the tournament, but again, very, very settled 11. Might not have great depth in their squad, but that is a formidable 11. I think that team will take some beating if they play well.
We've seen a little bit of Lockie Ferguson in the IPL when he played for Pune. Would you have still liked to see Harry Gurney get a go after the way he played for the Melbourne Renegades?
Yeah, I think they've missed the trick actually
Yeah.
with not picking Gurney. I think one of their issues last year was death bowling. In fact, it was pretty much everyone's issue. And they've got the Gurney in specifically for that reason. And look, he's played all his games at Trent Bridge, which we know is a small ground, good wicket, and he goes at 6.5 and over in that, and he did well for Melbourne.
It's one of those
Renegades.
things, isn't it? Sometimes it's a gut call.
Yeah.
And you've got to be brave enough. I mean, obviously they've seen something in the nets that they prefer Ferguson, I guess. But like
Maybe that extra
Brad's
little
saying,
pace that Yusuf Pathan wouldn't,
Well-
they mind having him throw at their...
No, but I mean, if someone's going at 6.5 runs and over, it's always worth a gamble.
You need tricks, but the thing
Yeah.
is they've got flexibility in their bowling unit to be able to cover. I mean, they've got 6-7 options. There's plenty there from them to be able to cover if someone has a bad day.
I'm not saying that Lockie Ferguson's had a lot of experience playing in India. Sometimes the overseas player at the Eden Gardens in your first game, you could get 60, 70,000. You have a slight, feeling or memory of these kind of things that tend to play on for overseas players.
Yeah, I mean, it can go pear-shaped pretty quickly. There's no doubt about it. It's tough. I mean, certainly first game of the year, especially as overseas players, you're always looking to your bench strength as well, and you know that there's always quality on that bench strength. So you have to beat your best. There's no doubt about it. So that's why it's a great competition.
Okay, it's still early days, so let's not get one way or the other on selections just yet. They've gone with Lockie Ferguson ahead of Harry Gurney, and Andrik Nortje, the South African, has been ruled out, so that depleted pace options in any way for KKR. Let's talk a little bit about their captain, though. It's a crucial season for Dinesh Karthik, and that's what our focus is on. He finds himself out of the ODI squad at just the wrong time, just before the World Cup, and much to the dismay of a lot of his fans. So let's just talk a little bit about Dinesh Karthik, and we also go to our poll question for the day in just a minute. But let's talk on Dinesh Karthik. This IPL could decide his possible comeback to the Indian team if it goes well for him, or is that anyway
I hope
taken
not.
care of?
I hope not. I think there's a difference between 2020 cricket and playing one-day cricket for your country. And we've seen Dinesh Karthik, I mean, unfortunately, as good as he's been in T20 cricket, hasn't quite, replicated that in one-day cricket, and that's just the reality. And MS Dhoni is your first keeper, so he's not even going to be playing as a keeper. So as a frontline batsman, for me, I don't think he gets in the squad ahead of Rishabh Pant.
The thing is, sometimes we tend to confuse perhaps how good he is in 2020 cricket, 250 over cricket. We're just going to look at Dinesh Karthik's very impressive flash card in 2020 cricket, and that in itself will give you an idea. Again, the balls per boundary, hits a boundary every 6 balls that he faces, and that death strike rate is why he's been so good. He's been considered to be one of the best finishers in this format in India. But he's got a slightly different role in ODI cricket, builds innings differently. Do you agree sometimes that his T20 performances can cloud judgment for his
Yeah,
ODIs?
they have been. I think that's one of the reasons. I think that win that he got India in the Nidhas
Trophy, yes.
that kind of got him back in the one-day setup, and I don't think it was the right thing to do, because one day when you're batting at number 4, I think Brad will tell you better. You've got 30 overs to bat. You can't just go and slog the first 8 balls that you face. So it's a little bit different. Look, he's been exceptional in T20 cricket, and you can't, I mean, I'm sure he'll be still part of the Indian setup in T20 cricket. But as far as one-day cricket is concerned, I think Rishabh Pant, for me, my opinion, should play ahead of him. Nothing to take away from what he's doing for KKR, which is just exceptional.
All right, let's just look at where he's been used, and that's another point of conversation before I get Brad on this too. For T20s for India and Kolkata since 2018. Now 5, 6, 7. I think a lot of this is pretty much dictated by match situation, I'm guessing, Haji. But just what Ajit points out, the slight adjustments you've got to make when you are looking good in 2020, and all of a sudden you have too much time in ODIs. Some guys get it, some guys don't.
Yeah, it's different because I actually worked a lot with Dinesh when he came to Gujarat Lions, actually, and I was the coach there, and we talked about the roles in which he had a different set of mindset to what I wanted him to be. So we talked about increasing your strike rate. We talked about expansive games later on at the back end. So we want him to be aggressive against spin, which we thought he was an excellent player at spin. But he's quite negative in mindset about how deep he wanted to take his innings. So we wanted more impact early, and I think that's what he's been able to do in those later overs where, you
doesn't have to think too much.
Yeah, you've only got, minimum 20, maximum 20 balls. And I think that's where he's been able to adapt and go, okay, well, I'm not going to get 60 or 70, What I'm going to be happy with is 35-40. So minimal, small time, but big impact.
That's very interesting. Some batsmen take to it better than others, though. I know you were told at Rajasthan that might be the impact that they were looking for from you.
Well, yeah, one of the things which I said to him is that, India know what you can do at this current stage. You have to change their mindset.
Yeah.
So, and he actually did that. I said it's going to take a lot of courage to do something which you don't want to do. But he took that on board, and it actually worked in his favour. It increased expanded his game, then got him back in the inside. He just unfortunately couldn't hold on to it.
I know Sanjay Manjrekar shares that similar view. Just don't give him time to think. Let him go out and let him just hit. Therefore, use him for that end. Do you share that?
Yeah,
sort of
maybe.
view?
I mean, you sometimes tend to overthink if you have a lot more time.
Yeah.
At the moment, he's just playing on instinct, and that's why people always talk about him being back in the Indian setup because he looks so good doing that. But it's not always as straightforward when you're playing international cricket.
All right, so Dinesh Karthik, big season for him, and let's see if India are still looking for a candidate. Then what's the harm in having a good IPL season to give the selectors something to think about? Let's talk about the potential weak link for Kolkata, and that would be their pace attack. Before we go there, have a look at our first poll and our final poll for the day. Who's going to win, Kolkata or Hyderabad? If you're going with Kolkata, give me that big ha-ha reaction on Facebook. Otherwise, go for the surprised Hyderabad one if you think they're going to cause an upset, if you could call it that, at the Eden Gardens. Let's talk about Kolkata's pace resources. It's not quite as deep and as rich as some of the other teams. You just have a look at some numbers as well. Remember, those are your reactions if you're watching on Facebook Live to get involved with the poll. Now, Andre Russell has not quite had the same impact in the last year or so ever since he's returned from serving a suspension for a dope ban. 8.7 is what his economy is. You'll still take that on certain days if he's getting you wickets. Carlos Brathwaite's part of this team. I don't know how much game time he'll get. Prasidh Krishna now finds himself as the lead Indian pacer. Lockie Ferguson, and where they've got the inexperienced Munde too in that list. They've never been one to really go big on Indian seamers. They've had some good overseas seamers and they've relied on their Indian spinners to do a job. Are they thinner this year than other years for you?
I think so. I think Cummins was with them for a little period. He would have helped the way he's bowling at the moment.
Coulter Nile spent a good amount of time there. He was good.
And the pitch has changed, which Prasidh Krishna has shown promise, I think, more with the new ball. I think Brad said before, their real struggles were towards the end of the innings, where they expected Andre Russell to do a bit more than what he did last year. Maybe through injuries, through lack of sort of fitness coming into the tournament, having not had a lot of cricket. Mavi and Nagar Koti, two young kids that they invested in, both played part of the last season, Mavi, but are out of this, along with Shubman Gill. Those three were the guys that they kind of invested going forward, and they look promising. They might have done a job for them. Unfortunately, they're not there. So again, you've got to rely on, I would have been quite keen to see Gurney. I haven't seen much of him, but someone who has something different to offer, especially when the rest of your attack, you have enough variations in your spin, but your seamers all seem sort of the same type at the moment, that the three guys that they've picked. So it would have been interesting to see.
Well, that's the reason why you see those inflated economy rates, because as a batting unit, when you come up against KKR, you know that Nareen's going to be a challenge, you know that Kuldeep's going to be a challenge in Chawla, so they're going to go at 6.5, 7. You have to take down someone, and it's going to be that fast bowling unit. So, if you're an opposition batting group, you're saying you're going to go as hard as you possibly can.
Now, you both make the good point of their worries at the death. We just look at the numbers of how these bowlers fared in IPL 2018 at the death. That's the thing, right? You've put a lot of responsibility on Prasidh Krishna. I've made him bowl the most as far as the pacers go in the death at 9.45. I'm just wondering, Haji, if Andre Russell, the bowler, assumes real significance, especially bowling at the death, even though he didn't have the nicest season last year.
Yeah, look, he's going to have to. It all depends on how many wickets they get through that middle as well. When you've got 5 or 6 down, you can afford to bowl your spinners a bit deeper. But if you're only 2 or 3 or 3, down,
it doesn't matter who the spinner is.
They're going to get punished. So, it's a real conundrum for them. That's why I just would have thought that Harry Gurney comes in to take that role. But they see it differently.
And maybe that's why they're chasing as well. That's one of the reasons. In spite of having such good spin bowling resources, they don't want to try and take that chance of defending a total.
Taking nothing away from Lockie Ferguson, who shows a lot of promise as a quick New Zealand fast bowler, but if you just look at how Lockie Ferguson has been used, essentially there's a lot of bowling being done in the power play and the death, power play in the middle overs, and not so much at the death. So even in T20s last couple of years, Lockie Ferguson's not necessarily one that you rely on specifically for the death. Does that somewhat mean you might want to look at Sunil Narayan as an option at the death? Would you still want to identify Lockie Ferguson and have a crack with him at the death?
Well, he's gonna
But
have to do it.
those aren't bad numbers.
Those
I mean,
aren't
they're
bad
only
numbers.
14 overs compared to 40 and 38. But those aren't bad numbers. Just over 6 or 6.5 and some wickets there. So.
It's just how you step up.
Yeah.
I mean, you put Lockie Ferguson in with Trent Bolt and Tim Southey, who play those roles, then his job becomes easier. Now that he's number one finisher along that role, that's a different question.
You don't need fast bowling captains in teams anymore. I mean, one senior fast bowler to help the young fast bowlers and tell them
If you
what
can
to
get a
bowl.
good one, ideally yes, but it's hard to find one. I mean,
Even that KKR team, it's not like they've got a Zaid Khan or an Ashish Nehra.
Yeah,
they've
but
got
I mean,
just Jack Callis there.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I think Mitch Johnson played for them for a season, and then there was Pat Cummins, who would have been ideal with the kind of job he's doing for Australia. But you've got to find a good one as well. You can't just have somebody for the sake of it.
All right, now let's focus on the challenge for Hyderabad in the middle overs. Spin seems to be a slight issue for them, and they come up against arguably the best spin, potent partnership in the IPL. They've got one of the best spinners in their own team, but they've got a great trio of spinners, KKR. We're looking at the most wickets for spinners at home in the IPL, and we've got KKR at number 1. And you've got the overall as well. They easily outdo Hyderabad. So these three continue to be a force. It's not like they're on the wane or they don't collectively get each other right. The use of three spinners is sometimes you can play too many spinners and not know how to use them. No such problem with Kolkata. They've relied on these three to do a job for them. Even with Sunil Narayan and his issues, they remain a force, the three of them together.
Yeah, I mean, three quality guys. The two wrist spinners obviously bowl through the middle of the innings. Kuldeep's just grown as a cricketer over the last year and a half playing for India. And Piyush Chawla has been around for a long time. When you have that quality, why would you not? And spin does start playing a bigger role as the tournament progresses. It just gets hotter in India, the pitches slow down. Batsmen have to do a lot of the work against slower bowlers. And when you have three quality, they're always going to have impacts on more games than not through the course of those 14 games.
We saw numbers that suggested that Sunrisers' middle order against spin in IPL 2018 was a bit of an issue. So let's take those right now. Shakib and Manish Pandey just about a run a ball against the spinners. Yusuf Pathan too, not quite the same. Deepak Hooda. Does Vijay Shankar suddenly become a big player here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at those figures as a batter, you're throwing them out the back door because they're pretty average. You want more from Manish Pandey, I reckon. He really struggled last year, and whether that was stepping up to the plate with a big price tag, I'm not sure. But he's a good player, and he needs to take more of a senior role in that the middle order there. But I think Vijay Shankar, from what I've seen, looked like a pretty good player of spin.
Yeah, looks shocking numbers those actually for three Indians out of those four there.
And Shakib Al Hasan,
And
who also plays
for
a hell of a lot of
Bangladesh.
spin.
So, I mean, okay, there's some good spinners around, but even so, I think Hyderabad obviously bowled really well through the course of last season, and Williamson carried a lot of their batting. He'll be a big miss today, and these guys will have to step up against a really good bowling attack.
Right, Shakib Al Hasan has also had the honour of ringing the bell at the Eden Gardens just a few minutes back, so that's one thing that'll set his day going. Quick time to now look at our Fab 4 selections for both Ajit and Haji, this game that we play every day with our guests, where they pick 4 players. Depending on how those players do with bat and ball and in the field, they tend to get points in a fantasy style system that we have devised. And yesterday it was Ajit Agarkar that won the Fab 4 contest.
A massive margin of 6.
Rather convincingly by 6 points. And that's the system. Runs get you points, wickets get you points, bonus points for the bowler with the best economy rate, and bonus points for 50s, 100s and 30s as well. Catches and direct hits and run-outs, etc. get you points too. And let's see if Haji can come back today. Right, given Ajit won yesterday, I'm going to let him pick first. If that's all
I
right.
picked yesterday, so okay.
You picked all right. Let me
that's fine. I'll go. I'm going to go Warner.
You're going to go David Warner. Big return.
Yeah, obviously Rashid Khan. Andre Russell. Who have you got? Sunil Narayan, I think.
Sunil Narayan. Safe bets, right. Okay, 4 international
Chris
players.
Lynn,
No faith by the Indian in the Indians. Brad Hodge.
I'll change it then. I'll go Nitish Rana,
Oh, okay.
Vijay Shankar, Andre Russell, and
Kuldeep?
I'll go Kuldeep. Yep.
Okay, fine. There you go. You've had it. 3 Indians for Brad Hodge, none for Ajit Agarkar. Any guesses on a score? You guys were 100 short yesterday, but that's all right.
Yeah, looks good wicket. So, you know, I think 170 needs to be a target, somewhere around that figure.
I think they'll take 170. I think 170 Sunrisers would be happy with. It'd be interesting to see how they go without Williamson.
The return of David Warner in Sunrisers colours, a new partner for him in Johnny Bairstow. All sorts of emotions would be running and all sorts of subplots in this game. Do join us for our half-time show on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday T20. We'll take your questions and comments on how this first innings has gone. They've predicted about a 170 or so. How have you predicted the outcome of this game? We'll have a quick look at the poll results. That's a bit of a surprise for me. 62% are going for the away team, 38% for Kolkata. We'll see how good that prediction looks in an hour and a half from now. We'll see you for our halftime show then for ESPN Cricinfo Matchday T20.